2, we're live.
Hey, good evening. It's late, isn't it? Welcome to Speak Up Live. This is our monthly meeting with our Davis County Fiscal Court. And most of them are here, but we have a special guest as well. So my name is Kirkpatrick. We want you to send in your questions and comments to the Judge Executive. Al Mattingly is here. Judge.
Good evening, Kirk.
Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here as always.
Our special guest, Chris Joslin. Chris is the Executive Director of the International Bluegrass Music Museum here in Owensboro. Fresh off romp, congratulations.
That's right. Thank you, sir.
And you got a big road ahead of you here with the Museum Center. They just broke ground for that. And so we're going to be talking to Chris about that. Commissioners Charlie Castlin.
Good evening, Kirk.
How is, well, we'll talk about the weather here in just a moment, okay? And Commissioner Mike Koger. George Wathing could not be here with us today, and that's why we've got Chris as a special guest. Mike, nice to have you here, and Charlie, of course, special guest Chris. But let's go to the state of emergency. You know, last Friday was the first time that a state of emergency had been called in quite a while. I think a lot of people were confused what that meant. And there certainly was a lot of damage. But can you tell us why would that be called?
Real quickly, Kirk. Lots of people have a misconception regarding a state of emergency. They think that means they can't travel the highways and do all those kinds of things, and that's not true. We call the state of emergency in order to be reimbursed by the federal government, by FEMA, for any expenses that are extraordinary to our budget. The last time that I called the state of emergency was in 2011. We had just taken office, and if you recall, we had a flood. So we declared a state of emergency, and FEMA helped pay for some of those cleanup costs. Friday, we had 70-mile-an-hour winds. We had lots of rain on the ground that was already saturated. A lot of trees uprooted, 10,000 OMU customers, 6,000, 7,000 Kenergy customers without power. Had really no idea where the cost would be. Unless we declare that state of emergency, we couldn't get any help. Now, I doubt that FEMA is going to have, what I doubt is that the state threshold will be met, which means that if it's not met, we probably will not get any reimbursement.
But it's a safety net.
Locally, we absolutely have met that threshold, so it depends on the state. There were a dozen counties in western Kentucky that declared a state of emergency. So now there would be those who said, well, why in the world they call a state of emergency for a little rain and wind Friday morning when we had 10 inches of snow a couple years ago and he didn't? Well, we took advantage on a snow event. An individual county does not have to call a state of emergency. If you're contiguous to another county that did, then you can use that state of emergency for reimbursement. So it doesn't mean when there's a state of emergency, doesn't mean you can call your employer and say, hey, I can't come to work because they won't let me. It doesn't mean that you won't get paid or that you'll get paid for not showing up for work. All a state of emergency does is give us the ability to recoup some taxpayer dollars.
Well, it was a state of emergency, though,
and it was.
And that's a great call. Now, how was the county? Let's start with some of the
lots of trees down. I would tell you that as of today, we've had about 15 inches of rain in a month that we normally get 3 to 4 inches of rain. Ground is saturated. We've had many places flood today that had not flooded. Friday there was a terrible flood throughout the entire community. Somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 acres of corn was damaged. Clint Hardy said somewhere around 5,000 acres of beans were damaged, 1,000 acres of tobacco. I talked to a couple farmer friends of mine at the dedication of Independence Bank, which we'll get to later. They said this rain was terrible, that they now have fields of beans underwater.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be just a terrible year for ag. Hope that the good Lord will bring them out of it. You know, in the county, the good news was there was no loss of life. Unfortunately, lots of trees down. I know in the city has a leaf and limb collection that the citizens pay for through their monthly garbage fee. Citizens in the city can bring leaf and limb to the transfer station or out to the landfill. And if they have an OMU bill, then they can dump it for free, but it's not really free because we turn around and send that bill to the city and the city will pay for it. Friday, I allowed the city and anybody else to bring huge trees and stumps. Today, or Monday, we stopped it. Normally, we don't take anything bigger than 6 inches. We did have a few calls from county residents wondering why we weren't coming out and picking up limbs, and that's not a service that the county provides. Our landfill is a fee-for-service, which it's just like the city's garbage collection is a fee-for-service. You don't pay, you don't get it. We would have to probably put on 50 more employees. They have to pay for it if they bring it to the landfill. There are commercial people out there who will come and charge you a fee, and they can clean it up. So it's somebody said, well, the last administration did it during ice storm. Well, the last administration didn't. FEMA/the state provided a contractor who came through here. State paid them, FEMA paid them. It wasn't a service provided by the county.
Tax.
So, you know, we try to keep our taxes as low as possible. We try to use them on roads and things like that. You can't predict storms. You can't have a huge crew and trucks hanging around for this kind of storm, although it might pay us to do it if we continue to get as many storms as
Well, real
came
quickly,
through.
you were telling me a story. Last month, there was a question that was phoned in regarding a footbridge that was a privately owned footbridge. It was over a ravine or whatever. And I thought you had at the time you said, look, they're not legal. You need, and here was a good example.
We had somebody call about a footbridge that connected the neighborhood to the green belt. Well, today we had a footbridge that had gone over a ditch. Well, during all this rain, the footbridge wasn't anchored. It was probably 10, 12 foot long, and that footbridge floated into the ditch, became lodged in a large culvert, and caused water not to be able to go under the road, but actually came over the road to and I have pictures of it, to as deep as 6 inches, rushing very quickly. I happened to have been out in that neighborhood checking another issue that we'd had on the other street, and I sat in that street with the blinkers on my truck until the water went down, and I pulled the footbridge out, which allowed the water to go on and flow. It was important that it not get back in there again because we had another storm predicted to hit.
Right.
It didn't, thank God, it didn't hit, but I had the county people go ahead and take it. Folks, I understand you like to have nice and easy ways to get from one side of the ditch to the other, but there are consequences to doing those kinds of things, and in this case I instructed our road crews to take that bridge.
Can you get a permit to do it, or have somebody do it that meets specs?
Here's what I would suggest. If you want to do that, call the county engineer's office. Call the county engineer, 685-8426. I don't remember, it's one of those numbers. And our county engineer will absolutely be happy to come out and look at it and tell you how you should do it to prevent that. Last year we had a person drown in just such an incident where their car got swept off of a road. We don't want that to happen. You know, I'm sure that the neighbors are not going to like the fact that we removed the bridge, took it away.
Well, you didn't. The rain did.
Well, rain took it, and then I instructed the other folks.
And I want to just jump in here. As far as the footbridge, the board blocking the water flow in the culvert, we've had one place, and Al, you can help me. I can't think of the street, the road, the highway. It's a state secondary highway. It has washed out twice.
Yes.
Because in
you stop the water and it's going to go over and under. Yeah.
So you have catastrophic consequences when that happens.
As I was sitting there watching it, Charlie, the water was running over the road, of course, around the head wall and back into the ditch on the other side. And there is a cypress tree sitting right there, and it's washing the base of the cypress tree. So we were supposed to have 40-mile-an-hour winds with this last storm. And again, we didn't. But that cypress tree was big enough it would have fallen squarely on a neighbor's house across the street. That's you just have to. Most people don't think about those things. That's why we have a county engineer to advise.
We want your questions. You can call them in at 686-4615. All of our Facebook Live fans that are watching on OC TC Facebook Live. You can just type in the questions. And the first question, we're finally getting to our guest here after talking about
Kirk,
this weather. Yes,
I'll
sir.
just say one small
Yeah,
thing.
Mike.
On Friday, the reason the sirens didn't go off, didn't want to put people into more of a panic mode. They did check them silently. They knew that they were working if need to be, but if anybody wanted to know why they didn't go off at 12 o'clock on Friday, that was the reason.
Got it. That's a good point. They
Kirk,
didn't want
before you go further, Chris, you didn't have any shields or plants out in the audience calling in questions or making any comments.
Well, I don't know.
We'll see.
See, the first question, and we're going to get to your questions right now. Thanks for your patience. April from Davis County. Any ideas why attendance at Romp was down this year? I thought it was a great show this year, and I think everybody that went thought it was a great show. I know you went.
Yes.
I know Charlie was there.
Yes.
Mike, too.
Yes.
Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
It had to be considered a success in almost every aspect.
Yeah, I think so, and it does my heart good to hear people who I've gotten to know already, who I know are locals, been to Romp several times, coming up to me and talking about how much they enjoyed it and how it keeps getting better each year. You know, that's that final number of attendance is sometimes hard to nail down because kids 12 and under are free, and so we try our best through wristbands to track that, and I think we're getting better. So that number may not be, exact, but I guess I look at attendance and results like that. It's almost like a farmer. I mean, there are so many variables to an event like this, and so many moving parts that you really have to take, the 3 to 5 year outlook as opposed to year to year, because there are variables with weather. Some aspects of the festival the year before may enhance the outcome this year. So there are a lot of variables, but I think at the end of the day, we considered it a success.
Well, it certainly was a success financially. It probably was the greatest income that Romp had in its history, which was great. I want to get back to you, but I know that you all were there. What comments did you hear from the people that you met? Not just your friends, but those from out of town.
I rode around people that from out of town that has continued coming back. One of the most comments I heard was how clean the place was. That ever so often they've got people coming around picking the trash up and all, and that was a big plus for them. And just the atmosphere in general, and that kids are safe, so good family event. Would come back again, or will come back, and so I thought that was nice to hear.
Charlie?
And Kirk, I would just say that generally it's just a good, as Mike said, it's a good family event, and the lineup is very good, and it goes on into the evening for those who want to make an extended evening out of it, and it's I think it's become quite a signature event for the community.
I have to agree.
I would tell you, Kirk, that the judging by the number of campers and RVs, it had to have been extremely successful. I don't think we've had more in the past. As a matter of fact, I talked to Ross Lee about how do we fit more campers in. I had one group who said that they thought that it was one of the most well-managed events that they had gone through. Everybody came in. There was no traffic jams. It was really, really well laid out. We stopped and talked to one couple one morning, and we said, "How did you hear about it? Is this your first time?" And they said, "Yes." And we said, "How did you hear about it?" And they said, "We saw a poster on a telephone pole in Marietta, Georgia."
Wow, Chris, you've been busy
That's
putting
right.
the posters up
That's
there.
exactly
Well,
right.
it has to do your heart good, Chris, to know that so many people are returning to Romp each season.
Right. No, you're exactly right, and the fact that we had hard to believe we had over 3,000 campsites. That's tent camping and RVs, so over 3,000. So even people who are from the local area like to come and camp and just make it an event. And I think you hit the nail on the head as I talked with folks, just anecdotally. It's really the quality of the event, and I think certainly it's grown, and we want to continue to grow it, but certainly not at the expense of the experience. And I think that's why people keep coming back. It's not any one thing. Certainly it's the music, it's the setting, Yellow Creek Park, And I'm not just saying this because I'm on this show, but it's no secret that without Ross Lee's help, Bruce Williams, who is over Yellow Creek Park, that partnership is an absolute must to make it work like
Let's
this.
thank our brothers from IBEW, the International Brotherhood of
Absolutely.
Electrical Workers. The retired guys come out every year.
They do.
And they work their
All
rear
the
ends off.
volunteers
Yes.
and
Oh,
the
yes.
law enforcement too. They
Yes.
did just a great job of making people feel safe,
Yes.
but also welcome.
Right.
Absolutely.
Next question back to Chris. We're so happy to have him here. From Alan, who lives in Davis County. Welcome to Owensboro, Chris. Where can we get a look at the design or rendering of the museum?
Yeah.
And let's move on to that. We're not talking about Romp anymore, or where the museum is now as part of the River Park Center. This is a $15 million International Bluegrass Music Center.
Right.
And you just broke ground on it.
We did. In fact, Thursday of the week of Romp, we broke ground. I know you fellows were there. all
Special
of you,
guests
so
there.
That's right. And we had, I think, 5 members of the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame who were there. And it's just great. I know I'm a latecomer, having come to this job last fall, so I recognize that this is really the crescendo of a lot of things, a lot of effort, a lot of time and commitment to see this project through. So it's exciting to see it off the ground.
Can
And
they see a picture on your website, or
They
you
can.
give us a quick description? I know you didn't bring one with you, but it does look
Right.
beautiful, and I think it matches the decor of all that's happening downtown too.
Absolutely. Yeah, so there's, you can go to the website, and there's a rendering there along with some articles about the groundbreaking. If you actually go to the site, there is a rendering there at the site of the new museum as well. So
On the corner of Frederica and
Yeah,
Second,
yeah,
I guess,
so that's right.
Um,
That's right.
You give us a snapshot of what we're talking about that will be in this music center, and when can we expect the ribbon cutting grand opening?
Right, right. So it's nearly 50,000 square feet, so it will encompass probably twice the exhibit space, and not only just the exhibit space, but we're able to start from scratch, and so there'll be a lot of technology integrated into the exhibits as well. Very dynamic and changeable, certainly a lot of music, a lot of audio and video involved with that. We'll also have a 450-seat performance venue with both audio and video capabilities, so some webcasting capability as well. So, so that's going to be great. We can have that music in downtown Owensboro really year-round to complement what happens at Romp. Also, there's an outdoor venue as well that can seat up to 1,500 to 2,000 people, so more opportunities for live music. We have some educational space too, flexible space that we can use for educational purposes. A rooftop restaurant as well involved with that. So there's just a lot more capability and a lot more resources that we can use to fulfill the mission of the museum.
Well, Alan said welcome to Owensboro, Chris, and for those that don't know, I think your backstory is really fascinating, how you got to Owensboro. Can you relay that to everybody real quickly?
Well, I'm from Nashville, and I am a musician. I'm a bluegrass musician.
And he'll be performing live. Let me go and give you a plug at Friday after 5.
That's right.
He is bringing some of his friends. That's right.
That's right.
On July. When is that? It's coming up.
August.
It's one of the.
Yeah,
it's in
right,
August
right.
in the Atmos Courtyard.
That's
So
right.
we'll be looking for you there. But
Great,
go ahead.
great. Well, I'm a bluegrass musician. I'm from Nashville. Have a degree from Belmont University and studied music business there at Belmont University in Nashville.
But that wasn't the job that you had.
That's right. So during the day, I masqueraded as a search consultant for a retained search firm in Nashville. So we work primarily in the consumer packaged goods industry, recruiting vice president, director level folks. So the museum had reached out to me to discuss the possibility of conducting a search for executive director for the museum. I had been to Owensboro years ago to play Friday After 5 with a band, but it had been a long time since I've been to Owensboro, and I was just taken aback by everything that was happening here and the energy and the excitement. And then the idea of that crescendoing into investment in this facility, this Bluegrass Museum and Hall of Fame, I just could not turn it off in terms of ideas in my mind. And the idea that this is the only place on the planet that this job is so unique. There's only one of them in the universe, and it's right here in Owensboro.
So really, they hired Chris to go find the executive director, and he found it right there with Chris. So this is a job, and certainly your qualifications hold up really well.
Right.
More questions for you, Chris.
All of them planted.
Well, this is from, you just want
From
to
Terry
talk.
Woodward, is it?
You know,
Terry,
the judge wants
Did you
his
say
time.
one of them said Terry? As the,
No, it said,
Oh,
this is
okay.
from Rob.
Okay.
He lives in Owensboro.
Okay.
Does Rob get the use of the park and the resources for free? If so, why? So it's at Yellow Creek Park, of course.
Yes.
A beautiful setting. What a great way to show
Yes.
that off. What is the arrangement there?
They do not get the use of the resources free. There is an agreement that we come to, and in that agreement, Davis County Fiscal Court provides security through the Sheriff's Department, and ROMP pays for that security. ROMP is no different than a car show that we close a street downtown, or the barbecue festival. We're trying to attract people into our community. We're trying to have people to bring their money, their dollars into our community and use the assets and resources available. So for a period of 3 days, 4 days, they are allowed the use of the facilities out at the park. I can tell you 1 year we had some significant damage to the field, and ROMP paid for all of that damage. So they pretty much pay the way. We think that it's worthy of us participating in the ROMP event, so we provide our park attendance and those kinds of things. But for the most part, it's all that labor is provided by volunteers. Just we talked about IBEW. ROMP pays for, I think the Davis County Band came out and served
right.
as ticket
That's right.
takers and all those kinds of things, earned money for the not-for-profit.
You have a lot
So
of
it's-
volunteers that help you
Yes.
make it
We
work.
do.
Yes.
Yeah, there's just an army of volunteers
Yes.
that help us pull this off. But to support what Judge Al Mattingly was saying, that we have a lot of vendors that we use
Yes.
to pull off ROMP as well. So we're trying to keep that local when it comes to, of
Right.
course, lodging for artists and hospitality. And vendors to pull off the event. So we're investing in the community, and ultimately any net income from ROMP
Goes
really
back.
serves to support the mission of the Bluegrass Music
Right.
Museum, which at the core of that is educational, an educational mission, so investing in county schools as well
Yes.
as city and Catholic
Sure.
schools.
A text to us. Where will the operating funds come from to operate the new museum? It's actually already paid for, the museum, through donations, pledges, and the cash is in the bank, I guess.
Right.
So
Right.
that's wonderful. But what about the operating, and what will the operating budget be yearly?
Well, that's a bit of an estimate, but it's the operating budget will be fueled by a combination of earned income and contributed income. So certainly income from admissions, from people who are paying to come to shows and to special events that we have at the museum. But then we also have grant money. We have donors who contribute. We're a 501c3 nonprofit as well, so contributions are tax deductible. So we have people literally across the globe who support the mission of the museum. So it will certainly be a combination.
And Chris, I would say this, that I'm sure that you have an operating budget now where you're located. Those monies will continue to come
Right.
in that form, and it'll just be moved over to a new building.
Right.
There will be fewer utilities relative to the size,
Right.
less maintenance costs, and those kinds of things.
Right.
Another question, this to Chris as well. Facebook Messenger. Chris, do you plan to work closer with IBMA in the future and incorporate more bluegrass acts at ROMP in the future? And of course, IBMA is the International Bluegrass Music Association, which is the association that represents all of bluegrass music.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, Paul Schimminger is their executive director, and Paul Schimminger is a fellow banjo player as well. So, but no, I have a good relationship with Paul, and in fact, we're good friends, and so we are already looking for new and innovative ways to collaborate. Of course, the Bluegrass Music Hall of Fame is an IBMA institution. It lives in our museum and is exhibited in our museum. In fact, Paul was up at ROMP on Thursday when we unveiled the Hall of Fame plaques for for Larry Sparks and Bill Keith, the new inductees. So I think we're looking, and they have a trade show in Raleigh each fall in September, and so there are already plans for us to work collaboratively with them at their trade show as well to not only highlight the museum at Owensboro, but to support their mission. And so we do have a lot of IBMA award winners at ROMP, but when we move to the new museum, again, we'll be able to host many of those groups year round, not just in June at Yellow Creek Park.
I think the IBMA, the greatest compliment from the IBMA that I heard from them was what you've done to archive some of these historical bluegrass performers' history. I mean, these are actual, not just audio, but video archive of many that are no longer with us, and they really were at the root of the bluegrass movement.
Well, you're exactly right. The Video Oral History Project we've been conducting those interviews for about a dozen years, and over 230 really pioneers of the music in their own words and documentary style interview with these folks. And that is going to be a central feature of the museum as well. I'm very excited about this because we'll be able to integrate many of those interviews into the exhibits at the new museum, especially in the Hall of Fame area. It's one thing to observe the plaque and to read the words on the plaque, but it's another thing to touch a touch screen and hear in their own words various segments about their life and their role in the music. So we're very excited about being able to showcase that.
George Wathen is the liaison or the member of the CVB representing Fiscal Court. George isn't here, but I know that the CVB probably has some estimate of the economic impact of an organization like that, or an event such as ROMP. Do you have any numbers on that? I mean,
I don't have hard numbers. I know that's something that they are assessing, and the CVB has been a great partner just because Shannon Wetzel and her team are so engaged, and in terms of just being a business partner and almost a consultant from a marketing standpoint in what we do. So we really have enjoyed that partnership, and that's going to be critical for us going forward too.
Well, obviously it's working with so many people coming back, and Judge, I know this is a good example. The fireworks that were scheduled really for the 3rd of July, correct? They were rained out, and so we had a lot of questions. We got some questions in Friday After 5, and then also, why don't you just reschedule them until next week? Well, why didn't you just reschedule them the next week?
Right. Because we didn't want to.
No, you know the real answer.
Well, I mean, number one, and I really don't know the real answer that
Well,
you're looking for, but at Panther Creek, it's packed. It's packed with ball teams and all those kinds of things, and all of our county parks are scheduled out for a long, long time.
Really, up through September.
Through September.
Jared Bratcher and those.
They do an excellent job, the sports marketing team that Shannon has. We have decided to hold it on Labor Day weekend. More people will be available to come out and enjoy it. As a matter of fact, I had somebody call me about were we going to do it on Friday night, and we didn't want to compete with ROMP, and that's ROMP's final.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Not ROMP,
Friday
but
After
Friday
5.
After 5. Well, it's just as good as ROMP.
Well, I don't know about that, but it's a nice
you
addition.
know, somebody sent out that deal about the guy that came up for the first time ever at Friday After 5, put it on Facebook and all kinds of things. You'll have to give them that
Larry
that
Ball,
link.
very well known in
Yeah.
the Lexington
But
area.
we decided to hold it on Saturday for Labor Day weekend. That way people can go to Friday After 5, enjoy that, then come out to the park on Saturday, enjoy that, have Sunday and Monday to recover.
Yeah, that'll be Labor Day weekend, so that'll be a
Labor Day
big
weekend,
Friday. That's the finale of
Yes.
Friday After 5.
Yes.
And well, Chris, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
We were out of time. Thanks for the questions.
We can't be, Kirk. I didn't get to talk.
I know. It's just tell you what. Anybody that wants to
thinking-
come down to the studio and listen to Al talk off the air for another 30 or 40 minutes, he'll
Commissioner
be here.
Castlin, raise your left hand and show them.
I just want to mention that we have a live studio audience tonight.
We do.
do
It's
again.
great.
All right.
Any quick update? Last time, anything coming up that you want
None.
to tell everybody about?
None.
Okay, we're
We're
out of
done.
time. Chris, welcome to Owensboro.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
joining us tonight, and thank you for joining us every month right here on Speak Up. This show is actually produced by the Davis County Fiscal Court in an effort to give you more access to them, and you can ask them questions, suggestions, and of course they meet twice a month at the the county courthouse. We'll see you next month right here on Speak Up. Thanks.